It's time for game night. A look at all of the high school football games set for this weekend across the Central Susquehanna Valley.
Hello and welcome to week 6 of our Game Night High School Football Podcast. I'm Daily Item Sports Editor Kurt Ritzman. I'm joined by lead football writer Todd Hummel.
For the first time in 7 weeks. Holy cow. It's week 6 already.
I know. Our podcast is brought to you by Bruiser Sports Grill at 839 West Water Street in Cole Township. And as Todd alluded to, we're halfway through the regular season.
Yeah. It's hard getting used to this new schedule where it's, we still have we still only have one Friday night left in September, but
right.
We're halfway through the season. We're going to hit the playoff. I think the last Friday night of the season is October 25th. So, yeah, it is flying right along. I think, you were just reading off the scores from last week before we went on the air. I think through 5 weeks that there's a clear line between some of our teams and some other teams. There's been a lot of blowouts this year.
Yes.
But when some of those teams match up, we get some good close games at times, too. We talked about Lewisburg and Shamokin last week, possibly being the best game of the week, and turned out to be
You were right.
No, we hedged it with Warrior Run Mifflinburg. We were really right and really wrong. How's that? But yeah, and I really like with what Lewisburg did coming back, going into that game. Coach Mark was saying wasn't happy with that they did not put away Milton in the first half like he thought they should last week or 2 weeks ago. And they really bounced back from 13 points down and did a great job to come back against Shamokin. Mm-hmm. Shamokin's passing game looked really good. I was able to catch that game on TV. Those of you that follow basketball, Matt Chicatano and Joey Mosser are their two inside guys who aren't very big but both can jump and both put that to good use in the football field. Both are in the area top 10 in receiving. Joey had I can't remember how many, 150 yards and 3 touchdowns
something like
on
that.
4 catches last week against Lewisburg. I think the big thing for the Indians is, as we'll talk about when we get to their game, is, they really have not run the ball since the first week of the season. They need to get a little bit of balance, and Lewisburg's got to be excited the way they bounced back, to get over 500, to be 3-2 in that first half of the season with the team. Even though, frankly, we talk a lot about, this week's cover story, Nick Shedleski and Max Moyers and several other guys, that played last year. But this is, a real young football team that's done a great job these first 5 games and maturing quickly and getting it together.
The other game we thought might be really good didn't turn out to be so competitive. It felt like a statement win to me for Mifflinburg.
Yeah, they did not play well in that game against They felt they did not play well in that game against Danville, their first loss of the season. They came out, scored on, I'm trying to remember, it was every possession but one in the first half.
Wow.
Really put it right down Warrior Run's throat. It was in the mercy rule by halftime after freshman Andrew Deal, who returned an interception for a touchdown late in the first half to get it into the mercy rule. And it's been a long time since Mifflinburg has been that impressive, to be quite honest, and they certainly will find out this week. This should certainly be a measurement game for them coming this week, heading out to the Silver Bowl.
Yeah, we were going over the scores before we started. Like Todd said, the Lewisburg-Shamokin game was the only game within a score. Only 2 games were within 2 scores. So a lot of mercy rules by the end of last week's games.
And North Schuylkill Mount Carmel was close into the second half, but it just sounds like the Spartans. The Red Tornadoes got worn down. Mm-hmm. I think North Schuylkill ran for almost 400 yards in that game, and if North Schuylkill gets that running game going, they're tough to stop, and that's going to be something to look for this week when we get to that game as well.
North Schuylkill ran 42 second half plays. And by that I mean they rushed 42 times. Every second half snap was a run. At halftime of that game, I felt real good about my Red Tornadoes pick. But yeah, Coach Dara said North Schuylkill had so many more guys that went one way. They just got a little worn down. So,
and it sounded like the kid going to Penn State, the Edelson kid, the linebacker was nicked up in the first half, and they just decided that I think it was halftime of my game and was looking at Twitter. I think he ran the ball the first 4 or 5 plays of the second half, and that kind of gave away their game plan for the rest of the half, I guess.
Exactly. That was our quick recap of Week 5. We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, Bruisers Sports Grill.
GDK Development of Shamokin is a proud supporter of all local and youth sports. The Welsh family has been in business for 37 years and thanks you for supporting them and their local businesses, including Bruiser Sports Grill in Cole Township and the Lewisburg and Sunbury Burger King restaurants. Again, thank you for 37 years of support and good luck area athletes and teams this sports season from the Welsh family and GDK Development of Shamokin.
Okay, now we're going to dive into Week 6 games. There are 12 games, so we're not going to spend a ton of time on any of them because, it's a busy schedule. But you can read all about it in Saturday's Daily Item. Don't worry.
And Sundays. There's a Saturday game this week.
Yeah, that's true. Let's start with Danville, 4-1, headed to Central Columbia, 3-2. Central's coming off a bad loss to Southern, which every Southern opponent is coming off a bad loss.
Yeah, that's not the first team that's happened to this year. Danville kind of got off to a slow start last week. They were really worried about that, and that happened. Did Milton take the lead? No, I don't think Milton took the lead.
Yes, Milton was ahead.
Yeah,
6-0.
Milton did take the lead on them, but Danville was able to turn it around and eventually win 49-14. Don't think they have that luxury this week against Central Columbia. The Blue Jays, they're another team that, they have struggled against the better team. Well, they struggled offensively against Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel had some trouble scoring on them. And Southern obviously did a number on them as well. But the defense is their strength. Big play offense. Garrett Nellis is the quarterback. Xander Bradley, who seems like he's been there for forever. I think he's a senior this year. They've really developed a connection and hit some big plays on people this year. Not quite, the team they were last year, where they, were able to wear teams down with Isaac Gensimer. Mm-hmm. So, I think this is a good matchup for Danville. I think, Danville stays hot. They're going to have to. Obviously, KJ Riley gets a lot of the pub, and for good reason. They've 1,033 yards already through the air. Wow. Could have probably won some money at whatever the Vegas of Pennsylvania is on Carson Persing leading the area and receiving yards halfway through the season instead of Mr. Fleming as well. The Danville, but their running game, they've been quite balanced this year. They've and I think that's really helped them. Teams have not been able to key on KJ, and he was the one last week with it's been Jagger Dressler most of the year, but KJ I think ended up with almost 150 yards and 2 scores on the ground to go along with his 3 touchdown passes through the air. So I think Danville gets this one, but this is more of a measuring stick game for them to see see where they're at after that. I think Central and Loyalsock are kind of the same, not the same, but kind of the same level football team for them.
Team Danville beat last week. Milton got off to a good start. Coach Davis was fairly happy with how his team played, but they did drop to 0-5, and they welcome in undefeated Montoursville on Friday night. Yeah,
Montoursville probably gets this one fairly easily. This is the game. I think we talk about it every year for Montoursville. Their schedule gets much tougher after this game. I know Southern and Selinsgrove are coming up for them. They've been playing really well. Same thing with Loyalsock last week. They like that Jersey Shore game, they were a little bit of a slow start, but really pulled away in the second half. The kicker had a 47-yard field goal in that game at the end of the half. They seem to have everything working up there. It looks like they'll get this one fairly easily, and probably looking ahead on their schedule to prepare for some of those bigger games down the road.
Since you mentioned Loyalsock twice now, let's talk about them next. 3-2, headed to Selinsgrove, 2-3. Selinsgrove defense played real well against Berwick last week in a 23-7 road loss.
Scored more than the offense. Selinsgrove's only touchdown in that game was created by the special teams and the defense. Down to punt at the 1, and were able to pressure the quarterback into an interception that Josh Nyland returned. I think it was 8 yards for a touchdown. This is a better matchup for the Seals. I really think, looking at the Lancers, the one issue for this Selinsgrove is they have struggled a little bit at the secondary at times, and Connor Watkins has led District 4 going into last week. I think Carson leads District 4 now.
Nope, not Connor Watkins.
No, not
Chase
Reese.
Kavanaugh, Reese Watkins, the wide receiver.
Yeah, Connor Watkins is playing for Villanova. Reese Watkins is one of the top receivers, and he's a real tough matchup just because he's so tall. That's something the Selinsgrove defensive backs are used to. They're not. Neither of those guys have been very big the last couple of years. So they're going to have to figure that out. And I think this is a better matchup up front for them. This is where, it's very clear that, there are teams Selinsgrove has struggled up front against: Berwick, Jersey Shore, and Southern Columbia, their 3 losses, and teams they played well against: Lewisburg and Shikellamy, their 2 wins. And I think this is a better matchup for them up front. Going to have to get the running game going. Obviously, that's another thing, that goes along with the line play. When they've run the ball well this year, they've won in those 2 games, and the opposite is true, obviously. I really think, despite the records, I think Selinsgrove wins this one, believe it or not. I think this is just a little better matchup, and they've, other than that, I think Selinsgrove has probably played a little tougher schedule up to this point as well with those 3 teams that they lost to. So, but yeah, this is, I think this has a chance, looking at some of these games, probably to be one of the closer ones of the week, though, I think.
Sure. You talked about Shikellamy, who put together a good half or so against Selinsgrove a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Winless, headed on a long road trip to Mill Hall, but have a chance for their first win, I think, against winless Central Mountain.
Yeah, both teams are 0-5, and this is the game. This is a game that Shikellamy won last year, and in all honesty, I thought they had less of a chance last year because they're just probably one of those years that they would all like to forget over there between the injuries and other such things last year. And this just seems to be a different team this year. I think if they can avoid turnovers, that's been the big thing for them, is not just turnovers when they make turnovers. It really seems that when there's some positive happens for the Braves this season, something negative certainly follows. But I think they changed that this week. They have to beware. Central Mountain was able to, hold Shamokin down for most of the game, on a trip up there. I really think, when we're talking about last week at the Braves and Holy Redeemer, that Coach Tilford was kind of talking about going up there because he wanted to go on a trip with his team. Well, he at least gets to go on one trip.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I think it's a Wendy's or a Sheetz rather than for dinner if you're looking for something to eat afterwards. But yeah, I really think the Braves get this one. I really hope the Braves get this one because there's some winnable games in their second half of their schedule, and doing the power rankings yesterday for today's paper. I mean, even at 0-5, they're barely behind the 2-win Columbia Montorvo Tech team. So I'm thinking if they want to play, if they want to get in the playoffs and win this game, that this win should put them comfortably ahead. Maybe not comfortably ahead, but at least ahead.
Yeah. Central Mountain's bigger than Chick, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so bonus points
Chick's
there.
4A and Central Mountain's 5A.
Okay. One of the games that I'm interested in, especially interested in, I mean, I'm interested in all of them, of course, and where you're headed.
Did you hear the phone ring in your back in your office?
4-1 Mifflinburg coming off that big win over Warrior Run, headed to Mount Carmel coming off that tough loss to North Schuylkill.
When we talked about the Mifflinburg Warrior Run last week, we talked that, they needed to get their passing game going, and I think it was only 12 yards against Danville. And, Riley Stahl had I think 3 or 4 catches for 73 yards, but, they were able to get the ball to some other guys. They got Lucas Whitaker, their tight end, caught a pass. Jacob Bingham, the other receiver, caught a pass. So, that's certainly going to help this Mifflinburg offense, who was really quite impressive running the football against Warrior Run. It's really what Mifflinburg would probably want to be, a little different type of offense. I don't know. Gary DeGroat in kind of the Libby role as the running quarterback and, just pounding people with Breed. And, he got nicked up at the end of the game, so I'm not sure how healthy he is for this one, the freshman kid. But he's a great change of pace back there because he's kind of a speed and a shifty shifty guy who can break a big play. I think his 2 touchdowns are the interception return this season, and he has a long punt return against Milton as well. So, and for Mount Carmel, it seems like they just wore down. They've been spreading the ball around. Last week Julian Steller had 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
This week Noah Burkowski had his first 2 touchdowns on the ground of the season.
2 weeks ago, Julian had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, 2 weeks. Yeah. So they've been kind of spreading the ball around, in their offense. The big thing for them is if they're able to stop the Mifflinburg running game. I don't know, if Mifflinburg's passing game is enough to attack that Mount Carmel defense. And I really think, Mifflinburg has I think it goes Mount Carmel, Loyalsock, Montoursville the next 3 weeks. I really think
that's tough.
Obviously, we're going to find out. I think this Mifflinburg team is pretty good, but I think we're going to find out how good over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I was just thinking. We talked last week about can Mifflinburg take the next step to rise up above some of those Hack 2 teams, and they showed they certainly can, but Mount Carmel's kind of another step up, and will the Wildcats be able to take that one this week?
And, that's probably what makes this the most interesting of the week. Just, if Mount Carmel gets this one and gets to 5-1, they've got to think about a home playoff game, and putting themselves in the mix for that Division two title if they get this one. Obviously going to have to beat Montoursville as well to do that. But this is certainly a statement game for them.
Moving on, we got 3-2 Jersey Shore headed to 2-3 Shamokin, coming off that tough 2-point loss at Lewisburg last week.
Speaking of, the Indians have had some tough ones to bounce back from already in the first half of the season between, the North Schuylkill and Southern Columbia blowout, and then this tough one, where they blew a 13-point lead, they rallied, had a 2-point conversion to tie it, and then got the ball back with a chance to tie it once again before an interception to seal it by Lewisburg's Graydon Feldman. I think going into this season that this had a chance. If Jersey Shore, Selinsgrove the second week of the season, there was a good chance Jersey Shore Shamokin this week would be for the title. The 2 teams that split last year. Shamokin got this one up at Thompson Street Stadium last year. No, Jersey Shore got them. Shamokin got Selinsgrove. Sorry about that. I just don't know. This is going to be a tough matchup. Just Tanner Lorson has been playing so well at quarterback as a dual threat. Throwing the ball and passing the ball for Jersey Shore. Again, this is going to come down the line play. Shamokin, it was 255 yards, I think, against Milton in the first week of the season, and I think they're just barely over 200 yards
since then
in the other 4 games. Now, obviously, Southern and North Schuylkill were in those 4 games, but I really think Coach Hynoski would like to get that running game going and be a little better on the ground game to take some of that pressure off of, Nate Grimes. I think they'd much rather go, for 180 yards and 180 yards rather than throw for 245 to 300 every week.
I think it gives them a nice dimension that they can do that if they have to. Though.
Yes, certainly. That'll come in. Certainly will come in handy come playoff time.
Southern Columbia 5-0 welcomes in South Williamsport 4-1. Not that this game was going to be interesting because Southern is just
Southern.
Yes, but I mean, I feel like it lost a little bit of its luster when South lost last week to Bloomsburg. Yeah,
it did, but I think Bloomsburg's played one of the tougher schedules in the area as well. That was a secret, really good 1-3 team going into that game. But yeah, and South Williamsport is as healthy as they've been all season. They have both running backs, Luke Wynn and I can never say Aaron Goreski. But again, it is Southern Columbia, and 5 weeks into the season and still haven't been scored on. Be interesting. This is probably their toughest, other than Mount Carmel, their toughest running game to stop. So that's to see how they match up with this one. I think Southern probably rolls in this one, and South Williamsport. South Williamsport needs to keep winning to keep pace with Canton, who's undefeated, as fighting for that top spot in Class A. But I think it's a good chance they're probably 4-2 after this week.
I talked to Southern Columbia graduate Seth Pletcher, who's a walk-on offensive lineman at Bucknell yesterday, and he said he doesn't think anyone, Wyoming state title, no one's going to come within 35 of Southern this year.
Probably not. Probably not. be interesting to see. I'd like to see one of the just for interest purposes. Ligonier Valley is pretty good. Whoever gets by, it's Ligonier Valley and Richland. If it's like last year, that team has to get by the District 1/2 team. But I think they're probably right. But I'd like to think there might be an interesting game or two in my late season.
Well, you can hope.
I can hope.
Warrior Run didn't have their best game last week against Mifflinburg, but has a good chance to get to 3-3 this week as they welcome winless Hughesville.
Yeah, they were immediately after the game. Coach Chris Long was really disappointed with how they played. Riley Dalbert warmed up but did not play in the game, so they were without him for the game. But Hoyt Bauer was back and he broke a big 50-yard run when it was still 21-0 late in the game, but they just could not overcome their turnover problems. This is a good game for them to get well in. I think that they're going to want to get that running game back to where it was at the beginning of the season. They have this one. They have a Votech game. They have some games at the end of the season where this is like in 2A when you want to get away from Southern and Mount Carmel in the top of the bracket. You want to stay away from Montoursville, obviously, and Warrior Run's in that danger zone of being the 8th seed here. So they need to get these games these winnable games in this part of the schedule.
Moving out of the HAC Midwest 2-3, headed to Penns Valley 4-1, and Penns Valley, I'm told, is somewhere between here and State College. Is that right?
Yeah. Elton passes it every day, every Monday when he comes in here to write his Penn State stories. Yeah, it's on Route 45 if you're going out to State College on the right-hand side, just past Milheim. Does that sound German to you? Or
Yes.
You have no idea. Yeah, this is a pretty good football team. Their only loss is to Clearfield the second week of the season, 56-49. This is going to be a tough test for the Mustangs defense, which they passed last year. They were able to beat this team in overtime, but the Penns Valley quarterback Aaron Tobias has thrown for 1,603 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions through the first 5 games. Logan Libby says, those are decent numbers. Also, 70.3% completion percentage. And then they have a big 6'2" tight end, Logan Snyder, who has 40 catches for 597 yards this season already.
In 5 games.
In 5 games.
Okay.
So, this is going to be, obviously it's going to be a test for the Midwest secondary. I don't think they have somebody that size to match up with Snyder in the middle as a tight end. But, they've seen this offense before last year. Obviously, Tobias is a year older. Last I saw, and this was the summertime, he was getting some 1AA looks. So, again, this like we talked last week, Jim. These 2 weeks were the toughest part of Midwest's schedule. I think Penns Valley gets this one. I also think this goes a little bit. This is a little better matchup for Midwest than Jim Thorpe was last week, though. Who C.J. Selby, the running back, at 250 yards almost. Yeah, he really ran.
Tough.
He was tough on that. He was tough on them out of West Snyder. I think they probably lose this one too, go to 2-4. But again, the Mustangs are another team whose last 4 games are much more winnable. With Athens, I think, is 1-4. Tacanic doesn't have many wins. That's gonna be another tough passing team, though. But yeah, so there are some wins at the end of this schedule for Midwest. They're gonna have to get some help from Selinsgrove if they want that home game in the district playoffs, but that's something to watch out for. If Selinsgrove can't get off Selinsgrove doesn't improve, I think they will improve. But
sure.
So it should be fun to watch somebody throw it around for a little bit. And if Midwest is able to stop that, that'd be a pretty big win for them.
Heading over to the Tri-Valley League, 5-0 Williams Valley, headed to 3-2 Line Mountain. Line Mountain's coming off a big win over Millersburg last week.
Yeah, Williams Valley, number 3 in Class A. I don't know if this is the Williams Valley of 2 years ago. I don't know if that if this team is that good. The big thing, Line Mountain, Evan Herb has not turned the ball over this year like he did last year. They're throwing the ball well. They're running the ball well. I really think they have something to prove after, blowing that game 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think, these teams play a lot of close games over here or down at Line Mountain. I think Williams Valley gets this one, but I think this is a lot closer than than people expect. I think Lime Mountain is. I think Lime Mountain's a pretty good football team at this point. It's just a matter of more mental than it was the physical out of Juniata.
Our other Tri-Valley game, 2-3 Millersburg, headed to 2-3 Newport.
Two very different 2-3s, I think. The Buffaloes. This isn't a good matchup for Millersburg just because of what Newport wants to do to you. Mm-hmm. That's, speaking of big running backs, the Greenwood kid, Ethan, is it Rode or Rhodey?
I don't know.
I've never known. It's Rode, but
we know how to write it. Saying it, we don't have to do that.
Yeah. But, I think he's 2,000-yard seasons on his way to a third, mm-hmm. As a running back at Newport. And, that's a tough matchup for Millersburg because, the one thing that they struggle with is stopping a real strong running game. They couldn't do it last week against Lime Mountain. It's probably going to be a little tough for them against Newport. An improved Millersburg team, but I don't think improved enough to get this one.
Moving to our one Saturday game, home game for Lewisburg, but I'm going to call it at a neutral site. They're playing at Bolig Memorial Field in Selinsgrove. 3-2 Green Dragons coming off that 2-point win over Shamokin. Welcome 2-3 Bloomsburg, which just handed South Williamsport its first loss of the year.
I was just going to say, it's got to be homecoming or Parents' Weekend at Bucknell.
Parents' Weekend.
Parents' Weekend. So Lewisburg has to find a place to play. Again, Jack Howell and the Bloomsburg offense were able to get their passing game going a little bit last week against South Williamsport. Defense played real well, only gave up 2 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. Going to be interesting to see how that defense matches up with Max Moyers, who, if you look at the stats, he's close to leading rusher. I'm not sure. I think Mason has more yards than he does right now. But, it's kind of a different kind of season for Max. Last year it was a lot of carries after Dylan Farinato got hurt. Mm-hmm. I think he's up over 10 yards a carry this season. They've really, and Coach Persing talked in the beginning of the season about spreading the ball around a little bit and getting Ethan Dominic involved in different parts of the offense. And those young receivers, the inexperienced receivers, Dante Sims and Simeon Byler have really done a good job for them, and that's really taken some of the pressure off Max. I think Lewisburg gets this one. I'm kind of excited for this one because I think I have not had a great run of luck of good football games this season. I think this is a good shot at a good one on Saturday night. I almost said Friday night.
That Friday night Silver Bowl, Saturday night Selinsgrove.
Yeah. Hopefully I remember that.
So that's our look at Week 6 in Valley High School football. Make sure to pick up our game night on Friday with Todd's cover story on Lewisburg quarterback Nick Shedleski, his column and picks and previews of all the games. Then Friday night, follow along dailyitem.com with our live blog and our live scoreboard. Saturday we'll have 11 of these games written up, and then Sunday you can read all about the Bloomsburg-Lewisburg game, followed by Monday's high school football notebook with interesting things from Friday and probably Saturday's games. And then we'll see you guys next week for Week 7. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
GDK Development of Shamokin is a proud supporter of all local and youth sports. The Welsh family has been in business for 37 years and thanks you for supporting them and their local businesses, including Bruiser Sports Grill in Cole Township and the Lewisburg and Sunbury Burger King restaurants. Again, thank you for 37 years of support and good luck area athletes and teams this sports season from the Welsh family and GDK Development of Shamokin.